here's a couple ideas for working with limitation in Upavistha Konasana. So that's the pose that looks like this. Legs abducted and folding forward. Now for me, I feel stretch back here. That's probably the medial hamstrings going into stretch. With the legs straight, this is a big stretch on the medial hamstrings. The other limitation here could be stretch on adductor magnus, or on the other side of the joint, we have the TFL. So the TFL muscle is a strip running from the greater trochanter to the ASIS, right in this area here. So it's a hybrid muscle. It's a hip flexor, and it's an abductor. So this is a direct shortening of TFL because I'm going into more hip flexion with the leg abducted. So that is really shortening TFL. One way that you can test if that is what is limiting you in this posture is by actually just putting compression. So in both of those TFLs, I will put compression as I flex forward more. If you can get more range when you do that, then that's the limiting factor in the posture. One way that you can test if your limitation is in the medial hamstrings, you can actually do a contract, relax, stretch for the medial hamstrings. So if I bend my knees a little bit and I press my heels into the floor, I'm really activating my hamstrings. And so I'll hold that for 5 seconds, take an inhale. And exhale, relax, engage the quads to keep the knees straight, and then fold forward again. Now, when I do this, I don't really feel much stretch here. I'm feeling more in the by the greater trochanter. So that would indicate the limitation in the TFL area. So if I just get some thumb compression in there, I can go a lot further, and you might find the same. So, if you have a vibration tool, you could also use vibration right in that area, right in that TFL area, between the trochanter and the ASIS. Now, the other limitation possibility is the adductor magnus going on stretch. But with the knee, and that'll happen whether the knee is straight or bent, because the adductor magnus does not cross the knee joint. So as I go into more flexion, it's going to put more stretch into adductor magnus. So I could just feel what I'm feeling here. If I feel a kind of groinish area pain, that would indicate adductor magnus stretch referral is going there. So that's my limiting factor. Here's another easy way that you can work with the TFL adductor magnus relationship in this pose. A good way to actually do a self-treatment would be in happy baby pose. So happy baby pose, looks like this. So my legs are abducted at about 45 degrees, and then I'm putting as I pull down, I'm getting a lot of hip flexion. So that's really going to stretch adductor magnus and very much shorten the TFL. So here's how we can work with the lengthening and the shortening side of the hip joint in that posture. So if I'll do it, it's easy to do it one at a time because then I can have a hand to do something else. So if I do happy baby like this, let me do it so you can see me. Maybe so if I'm working on this side, as I pull my heel down, I can see what I feel. I don't feel anything here or here. I feel a little pinching up here. So that would indicate that TFL doesn't want to shorten. So in which case I could either do something to get compression or vibration on that muscle. So in this case, I could use this hand to pull down and this hand to put a thumb in that area. So I'll do a contract relax. So if I adduct my leg and extend it into my hand, that's really going to activate my adductor magnus. I'll take a big inhale and exhale, relax it. And I'm just going to stick a thumb in there as I pull my leg down. So I'm in a lot of hip flexion with abduction. And now, since I have that compression with the thumb, I don't feel anything on this side of the hip. Now I'm feeling it on this side of the leg. So this is the adductor magnus going into stretch. So now I'm actually feeling that stretch. Now if I wanted to push that stretch some more, now that this is happier going short, I can do this. And now I'm going to put stretch and vibration on the adductor magnus. So I'm going to do another contract relax. So I'm going to push my leg forward. So I'm going to push my heel into my hand. So that's leg extension. And at the same time, I'm going to push my knee this way into my arm. That's the adduction. So that's really going to light up the adductor magnus. It's doing a lot of work right here. I'm going to hold that for 5 seconds for the contract. And exhale, relax it. And then I'm going to come and pull my heel down so my knee is outside of my hip, just outside my shoulder, taking my knee down towards the floor. And I'm starting to feel some groinish type stuff. So that's probably adductor magnus referral. And I can either get compression on it, just give it some feedback, or if I have a vibration tool, I can just run vibration on it. And if I wanted to push that further, now I'm starting to feel that on the other side of the joint. I could do that same thing with vibration on the TFL. So that's one way of working, well, a couple ways of working with TFL adductor magnus relationship. You can also do standing. You know, some people can't do happy baby pose. If you have half happy baby pose, if you have a limitation there, you can do the same thing, but you're using a chair. So one hip at a time. So I'm at 45 degrees of abduction and 90 degrees of hip flexion. If I just take my torso forward, see, that's like a standing version of half happy baby pose. And I could do all the things that I just did on the floor in this position. So this might be easier for some people. I could vibration here, or I could get vibration or thumb compression in the TFL itself, like that, to deactivate it. So a lot of times in yoga postures, if you just actually get compression on the shortening side of the joint, that's enough to deactivate that contraction on the short that's blocking your movement, and you can continue to get more range in that position just by putting some type of feedback, usually thumb compression or fist compression in that area will be enough to deactivate that so you can get further. So that's one way. So if I did a contract, relax, stretch here for adductor magnus, I would put my arm here, push my knee in, and push my heel into the chair so that I can feel that the muscles engaging in the adductor magnus muscles engaging. And then I'll relax it, and then I just come forward. If I start to feel any pinching in the top of the hip, I just put my thumb in there, and that lets me keep going. So you can do repetitions of that, and that will increase your flexibility in that adductor magnus TFL relationship. The other posture would be the standing version with legs straight. So this is, again, because the legs are abducted and the knee is straight, that's going to tend to put stretch into the medial hamstrings. And the possible blocker to that is going to could be your rectus femoris or your TFL. TFL, again, you would just If I was coming this way and I started to feel restriction, and I was feeling anything on this part of the hip, that's going to be my TFL not wanting to go short, so I can just put some compression in that as I bend forward. And that will deactivate that contraction on the shortening side of the joint and allow you to get deeper into the pose. There's a couple ideas for working with the TFL adductor magnus and the medial hamstring relationship in some of these straight-legged forward folding poses like Upavistha Konasana.